All right, we are going to solve the mystery of Frisson. Frisson via the superstar singer Haley Reinhart. And Frisson is commonly called the goosebumps. The goosebumps or the chills from listening to music. And in musicology, they have tried to understand what causes frisson. The French word frisson translates as skin or orgasm in French. Now, what we know from science is that frisson activates the vagus nerve, which coincidentally is also what is activated from the female orgasm. So there's a direct connection between frisson as skin orgasm from listening to music and the female orgasm, because they both are activated through the vagus nerve, in contrast to the male ejaculation that spikes cortisol through the sympathetic nervous system. So the vagus nerve is through the parasympathetic, which is a deeper relaxation. And so I have been listening to Haley Reinhart, and her big hit was first the TV commercial for chewing gum in 2015, and I had heard that song, and I just remember, I didn't know who it was at the time. I just remember instantly being attracted to her, the singer, the tone. I didn't know what the commercial was for. And I didn't know that song went viral. But at any rate, then she had the internet hit with the song "Creep," her cover of "Creep" as a jazz blues song. Now, it turns out that the genre blues is best known for causing frisson. So of any type of music, the music that causes the most frisson is the blues genre. What we do know about blues, the physics of blues, is a lecture on YouTube by a physics professor, and the blues tuning uses the natural overtones. So when they bend the notes or crimp the notes, or there's various terms for it, but the notes are more like the natural numbers. So the flat third is more like the 5/4 natural overtone, and then the flat 7 is more like the natural overtone. But from reading the comments to Haley Reinhart's singing, at first I was reluctant to listen to her other songs beyond Creep, because what makes Creep so powerful, in the fact that it's been listened to over 100 million times, is that it's a very slow song. In fact, her latest tour that she's currently doing, she sings it even slower. And some people have even complained about this, stating that the brass instruments can't maintain their tone to her slow tempo. But the thing is that there's a secret to music beyond Frisson that has to do with the serotonin, and this is due to the 1 beat per minute, or the 60 beats per minute, 1 beat per second tempo that I happened upon when I memorized the middle movement of Bach's Italian Concerto in F. And for some reason, I just loved memorizing this middle movement. And it turns out that most performers play it too fast. Whereas Glenn Gould, who is considered the best performer or interpreter of Bach is he plays it much slower. And so my claim is that, in fact, what's happening here is it turns out when you have that slow 1 beat per second, your brain actually subdivides it into quarter tones. So it's 4 beats per second. And so then you automatically are resonating that brain and heart frequency, which would be a deeper visionary, like theta and alpha brain waves. So you're going beyond the dopamine Frisson into the serotonin. Okay, having said that about the song Creep, I finally, after listening to every version of Haley Reinhart's Creep I could find online, because I wanted to hear how she changed it up. For example, in her early version, when she comes down on the word here in the chorus, she does what's called a vocal crack. I didn't know it was called a vocal crack, but she does a octave overtone that I had earlier compared to like Tuvan throat singing. And in her latest version, on her latest tour, she stopped doing that octave overtone, but again, she sings it even slower, so it kind of takes it to a deeper level in my view. Okay, so then I finally decided to venture into her other songs because I was afraid that I wouldn't like her other songs as much. And I had read other people having this concern that, like she would be almost a one-hit wonder or something, with Creep being so good. And I was pleasantly corrected in that view. And it turns out, as Haley explains in her recent podcast interview from like a year ago, that, she was raised in the womb on the stage, where said she would kick in synchronization with the drum beat, the drummer on stage. And this is what I call the blues of blues music, the blues of blues music. In other words, that slow tempo that you also will hear like in reggae music and in the middle movement of classical and Baroque music. It resonates the heart frequency, and by doing so, you're actually activating a deeper vagus nerve through the serotonin, which is the blue light frequency in the brain, the serotonin. Just as they tell you, not to have blue light, not to look into the LED blue light screens from like cell phones or computers, at night, because at night you're supposed to be switching from from serotonin to melatonin to go to sleep. That's why I wear blue light blocking sunglasses at night when I use the computer. And so, as I listened to Haley Reinhart more on the internet, first of all, like I noticed in her podcast interview, she had a remarkable skill of relative pitch. In other words, she was able to mimic and repeat very complex melodic phrases. And then tonight I heard her singing a song from her earlier when she was in her early 20s, maybe 21 or something. And it sounded just as good as, if not better than, Ella Fitzgerald, like to a T, like she had matched the timbre. And I was just stunned, and I looked up the song. I said, because I wanted to know, is this an Ella Fitzgerald cover? Because I didn't know. And sure enough, it was an Ella Fitzgerald cover. And I was just like, I'm still blown away by it. Like she's achieved a level of profundity in U.S. music that, I mean, people rave about her in the YouTube comments, but I've watched the vocal coaches that have explained the tricks that she uses, in terms of how she does her the growl tone, the growling. You might call it a dissonance, vibrato. And the vocal coaches explain that you need to do that in the back of your mouth instead of your throat, because if you use your throat, you're going to damage your vocal cords. And one of the vocal coaches explains that indeed Haley's using the back of her mouth, and so she's not damaging her vocal cords. And she's been doing that growl, since she was 21. I mean, probably her whole life. I don't know, but so I don't know, how she got trained precisely, but obviously she learned that trick correctly. And now this gets to the crux of the matter here, is that as I read the comments about in reaction to her songs, over and over people say they get the goosebumps listening to Haley, and that they fall in love with her tone, her timbre. But the word goosebumps is used more in response to her singing than I've seen from any other singer. Because normally there might be one song that causes the goosebumps. Obviously Creep is a good example. But the Creep, that song might cause it, whoever's singing it very well, it might cause goosebumps. But for Haley, she's causing goosebumps for like many of her songs, And as I read the reactions, the comments, I realized that the goosebumps were tied to her growl, the growl and the tone. And the vocal coaches, they say, the growl that she uses, it has dissonance. There's a dissonance in the growl. Now, as I recently discovered in my correspondence with the music professor, Kurt Ellenberger, that in fact, what I had been calling the Hempel effect, based on the the phase shift of the first three overtones, or the first three partials. There was a big debate on whether it can be heard or not heard, and the visual Fourier transform of the amplitude to the frequency shows a remarkable difference with the phase shift, because you're shifting from a constructive interference resonance to a deconstructive resonance, so you get a big change in the amplitude. But and then in that debate, it was between Koenig and Rudolf Koenig and Helmholtz. I think his first name's Hermann Helmholtz, and this was in like the late 1800s or maybe the early 1900s. And the device they created to test this was a really wild device. I heard they have it online. The school in Canada has that device that they use to test this phase change. And it turns out that Helmholtz was arguing that, well, you can hear the phase change, because the what happens with the phase change is the perfect fifth, as the overtone is 3/2, turns into an undertone of the octave when you do a phase change, and so you no longer hear the fundamental tone due to the deconstructive interference, and so you're able to hear the perfect fifth now as a perfect fifth undertone of the octave, which it, in fact, is a perfect fourth in relation to the same scale of the fundamental tone, the root tonic, because the perfect fourth is never an overtone of the fundamental tone or root tonic. And another way to state this is that if you play the perfect fourth and the root tonic together, like a drone, two notes, you actually hear the perfect fourth as the fundamental tone, even though it's a higher pitch, because the root tonic does not have the perfect fourth as one of its overtones, whereas the perfect fourth does have the root tonic as the third overtone, after the octave being the second overtone, or the third partial, or however so at any rate, this brings us back to the growl, because this is Helmholtz's argument, is why you can hear the difference in the phase shift. And whether you can hear it or not, you can definitely see the difference, but it has various meanings and levels of meaning depending on how you analyze it. So I call this the Hempel effect for various reasons. And so the growl, it turns out the dissonance creates a group delay, and they're now claiming, the latest science is claiming, that this phase shift of the first three partials are actually due to a dissonance as a group delay in the recording. So if you have a slight dissonance in the recording, that causes the higher overtones to cancel out the fundamental tone as like a phase shift in the overtone interference. And because it cancels out the fundamental tone, then you're able to hear the phase shift based on the octave to the perfect fifth as an undertone, which is actually a perfect fourth relative to the fundamental tone. And so how does this relate back to Haley Reinhart? Because my claim now is due to people experiencing the goosebumps from Haley Reinhart's dissonant growl, this leads me to claim that she's achieving that group delay, which in fact is a time reversed negative frequency as an undertone. In other words, according to modern science, you're not supposed to be able to create undertones except in a rare circumstance. But if you're having this group delay, what's happening is that, as physicist Gunter Nimps explains, is the group wave is defined by the amplitude in the Fourier transform between amplitude and frequency. So the phase is defined by the group amplitude. But what's in fact happening is that the phase shift is the non-commutative inverse frequency as a time reversal, as a negative frequency. And so the standard science, the modern science, is stating that that's impossible because you cannot have a negative frequency signal from the future. It violates primitive causality of linear time. But that's assuming that you're defining the group delay based on amplitude as a symmetric spatial measurement. But if you're relying on listening inherently based on what Alon Khan, the Fields Medal math professor, calls fundamental time, or math professor Lou Kaufman calls primordial time, or actually Alon Khan calls it primitive time, and Roger Penrose calls it fundamental time from Lee Smolin. And so, in other words, if time inherently exists as we experience it in music, when we listen to music, we're relying on time existing within us. We are listening to the source of the sound. And Roger Penrose, in his recent Science of Consciousness conference talk, argues that a skilled musician, like a pianist, inherently has a precognitive proto-consciousness that they are resonating with. And this is the secret also of meditation, whereby listening to the highest pitch we hear externally then resonates the brain internally as ultrasound. And that ultrasound then activates the vagus nerve that then increases the dopamine, and it's experienced as a internal chill or goosebumps, aka Frisson. And so by studying Haley Reinhart, who obviously has mastered the skill of causing people to experience this bliss, the skin orgasm as a vagus nerve activation that increases the dopamine through the goosebumps, her growl as dissonance literally is a time reversed negative frequency phase shift that science would call a group delay, but in fact is the non-commutative, non-local future and past overlapping in resonance. And this is why it creates a sensation of love in people, like not just bliss, but like joy and love, because when you take it to a deeper level, then it activates not just the dopamine, but then the serotonin and then the oxytocin. And and so scientists haven't been able to figure out the secret of frisson, what causes frisson, and there's been all sorts of theories. And the reason they haven't been able to figure it out is because they're assuming a symmetric spatial measurement as a group delay. The phase is defined through the amplitude for the energy of the signal, but in fact, the energy of the signal is quantum based on the frequency, and therefore, as physicist Günter Nimps explains, you can have the phase shift as a superluminal signal that's faster than the group signal. And so it appears to cause a group delay due to a superluminal time reversed signal as a non-commutative reversal of the frequency as a negative frequency and time reversed signal. And this is the true secret of frisson from the dissonance of the growl that Haley Reinhart has perfected so well. And she not only did she reproduce and, in my opinion, even surpass Ella Fitzgerald's. She built on Ella Fitzgerald's skill. This cover she did, it wasn't. She did "God Bless the Child," which was a Billie Holiday song, of course. That she also did a. Everybody commented they got the chills from that, the goosebumps. And then she also did a scat improv with a horn player. I think he's a trumpet player, or maybe trombone. At any rate, she was able to mimic his tone, the timbre of the horn, and the register, the perfect resonance of the clear timbre of the horn, and all the fine micro tunings of the horn. And so clearly, she's like a master musician, and also like a healer. She uses her voice as a healing tool, and so she's chosen to control her own creativity because only she understands her ability to do this. And so she refuses to sign any big label contracts where they control her creativity in the fine print. And so that's why people have wondered why she's not more famous. But the truth isn't a popularity contest, as I like to emphasize. And so we can thank Haley Reinhart for finally demonstrating the secret of frisson and the dissonant growl causing the frisson in blues music as this secret of the phase shift, group delay phase shift as a non-commutative negative frequency time reverse signal. And it's like a like a portal, a wormhole into the secret truth of music that then Haley Reinhart, takes to a deeper level, like with her Creep cover that is very slow and therefore pushes the limit of music into the serotonin beyond the Frisson. And that's a very rare moment in Western music where you go beyond the Frisson into the slower serotonin, deep relaxation that most would consider to be boring, because they don't understand that on that level there's no repetition. It's everything is like a constantly refreshing new creative reality that's unfolding from the future, where your external time is slowing down because your internal time is sped up due to this deeper level of negative frequency and time reverse signal. And that's eventually that opens up the heart energy through music. I experienced this from my own music training from the Bach middle movement, the second movement of the Italian Concerto in F major. And I didn't know it at the time. I just knew I was super happy and laughing all the time. Of course, part of it was because it's religious music, and I was religious at the time, and so I didn't know that the two combined together, and then it wasn't until I got into the Qigong training that I was able to take that to an even deeper level. Where you're literally seeing light, seeing blue light, seeing spirits, ghosts, and healing spirits, and having supernatural experiences, precognitive visions, telekinesis, telepathy, and psychic awareness and psychic healing, holographic reality. And so we can see how Haley Reinhart's music ability is like a portal to that deeper level of music that she might not consciously be so much aware of. She says she likes to take walks in the wilderness, and her fiance actually has the same first name as me, and he's also a blues keyboardist like I used to be. I mean, obviously he's much better than I was technically, but I just find that it's like a funny coincidence, because as far as modern musicians, I never watched American Idol. I didn't know who Haley Reinhart was. When I heard that commercial, the song from the commercial, I just thought, she sounds kind of like Nora Jones, and I was listening to Nora Jones about that same time. So her commercial, her advertising song, it sounded similar to Nora Jones, who was very popular at the time. But at the same time, it sounded even better than Nora Jones. And And people have pointed out, as good as Nora Jones is, Haley Reinhart, her range is much better. I mean, she doesn't, I wouldn't, I can't, it's not like a competition, but I mean, obviously, like Nora Jones's dad was the famous sitar player, and that George Harrison studied with, and Haley Reinhart has been composing songs in the style of George Harrison, and also, John Lennon, and the she has a knack for like building on the great Western singing, Western song traditions, modern songs, but trying to, taking it to a deeper level. So, especially like with her cover of Creep, obviously she makes it her own. Everybody says, that's some people complain because it's not like the boys version of Creep, the male, angst. But that's the whole point. Is she's flipping it around into a female empowerment song. She's showing that the true power of the female energy is, in a sense, even creepier than the male creep, because it's what Camille Paglia calls the fourth eye, as like Medusa, the cold stare that turns males into stone. And this is the secret power of Haley Reinhart, is that she's able to like have the staying power. She goes beyond the staying power, of the male. This is why women live 7 years longer than males on average. This is what the singing of the female is the original spiritual healing energy of humans from over 70,000 years ago. And so by relying on the medium of singing, she's sending out a healing energy that you can choose to build on it if you want. When you experience that internal tingling, that is a cleansing. The chills are literally neutralizing the free radicals in the body, that is especially caused by like sugar increasing the cortisol levels, but also increasing the anaerobic bacteria. The chills are therefore neutralizing and purifying the anaerobic bacteria. If you take it to a deeper level, it will clear out the impurities in the body. That's what the dancing. She's remarked how she relies on the audience, especially with the audience dancing, to feed energy back into her. And this is the inherent psychic energy of the female that most males are totally unaware of. But the ability for the female to feed off the male energy, and to, if they're skillful at it, like Haley Reinhart is with her singing, then they're able to transform it as a healing energy. But normally the male, by dancing, is taking in the female's singing energy and then transforming it and sending it back into the female through the dancing energy, transforming the singing energy. So it's hard to explain unless you actually do the training. It's almost a secret. You have to, my training manual, goes into the secrets about that process. But it has to do with opening up the third eye, the pineal gland, and sending out light out of the eyes, or just out of the pineal gland. Not just light, but sending out this, what is experienced as the internal tingling. Internally, that can be sent out. That can be sent back out of the body externally as it's an ionization. So like Haley Reinhart, she says she likes to take walks with her partner, in the wilderness. And when you're in the wilderness, there's a increased level of negative ions, which is a charge. That's what's called the yin qi in Taoism. And so when you stand barefoot on earth, then you will feel this same internal chills, or the goosebumps from the Frisson in music. It's called earthing, the earthing healing process by standing barefoot on the earth is the same absorption of the yin qi that activates the vagus nerve. And so you're increasing your negative ions, and that's stored in the blood. But then what happens is the third eye, the pineal gland, transforms the blood into increased cerebral spinal fluid, which is the yang qi, for the yang qi. And so I won't go into, it's obviously it gets complicated, the actual physiological transformation, that my training manual goes into more details. But I believe that this is the secret of Frisson, that Haley Reinhart has proven the ability to activate people's Frisson healing energy on a regular basis and create this feeling of vagus nerve bliss that increases into a feeling of love and a healing energy. But it's a female love healing energy. And so that's why she's so excellent at it, since she is female. And she was raised in a musical family, while she was still in the womb. And so it's a proven fact that you have essentially like perfect pitch. You have a 40% chance of perfect pitch if you start your music training before the age of 4. And while she might not have technically perfect pitch or absolute pitch, but what's more important in music training is actually the relative pitch. And her, as she explained in her recent the podcast interview, her sense of relative pitch is just, it is perfect. And that's what she said basically. She's like, well, I do have perfect pitch in a relative manner, and that's actually musically, that's actually more important than absolute pitch. It turns out absolute pitch is more tied to language, based on the timing, which is it's an interesting connection because essentially the origin of human language is from music, what they call music language. But I'm not gonna go into the language aspect because I'm staying focused on the music. So like there's this book Paracoustics, the sound and the paranormal, and this is a book from the UK, and it's pretty much unknown in the US that I know of. But I don't think they talk about Frisson in here. They don't have a index, but I will look in this, and it's a lot on acoustics and, microphones and infrasound and sound analysis, but they don't go into the deep music theory. They don't understand noncommutativity, so they don't understand the basic secret that the Frisson being activated is due to this non-commutative distortion as a group delay that originates from the non-commutative time and frequency inversion as the phase shift. And so I will look at this book again, but when I first looked at it, I couldn't find any understanding in that sense. So the problem is that when you assume a Western music analysis of, or a Western science analysis of music, then you don't understand that Western science actually originated from the wrong music theory. The liar of the liar created the rotten root as the irrational magnitude foundation of Western science is a deep, pre-established disharmony. To quote math professor Luigi Borzicchini, with whom I've corresponded. He's retired, but we first corresponded over 20 years ago. And so this is the secret, what he calls the guiding evolutive principle of Western science is actually from this secret music origin of Western mathematics. And then Alan Khan takes it to a deeper level and shows that if you can get outside the commutative geometry, that's the basis, that's the wrong music theory that created Western modern science, then you can get to the non-commutative mathematics from the correct music theory that he calls 2-3 infinity, being the non-commutative fundamental time as a deep music listening experience. And he compares it to orchestration, where you have several different transpositions of keys at the same time that he considers to be different space-times that are all phase coherent through the conductor of the orchestra. And if you study an orchestration, you're literally doing that on the piano. You're reading the whole orchestral score and transposing the different space-times at the same time. It's a real brain twister. And I did that training when I was in high school, like 16, 17 years old. And so I know from experience what Alan Khan is referring to. And at any rate, I'll leave it at that. And thank you for your time once again.